I'm not suggesting in any way that everybody needs to be an entrepreneur. What I am saying is that young people today, regardless of whether they work for themselves and start a business or if they work for an employer, what they need is a strong set, an entrepreneurial mindset that's going to enable them to be successful. An entrepreneurial mindset is actually critical to success in our rapidly changing world. So that brings us to an important question. And the question is, can an entrepreneurial mindset be nurtured? Absolutely. In fact, as I started specializing in this area, I realized very early on that not only can it be nurtured, but it's important to start young. Now, the idea of coming up with a product to sell for real to customers is incredibly exciting for kids. And in fact, they take it very, very seriously. Sometimes the students will create products that people enjoy. Other times they go a little bit deeper and they think, how can I solve a problem? Or how can I make a difference in the world by creating a product? Mimi is one of our students that decided to come up with this cat toy, and a toy that looked like a cat, I should say. And she took this two materials, a mock suede and a mock fur. She cut strips, sewed them together, and had a cat face at the front and a tail. And she really wanted to have a fun name for this, so she called them Roadkill Kitties. And if that wasn't enough, she took a big branch that had fallen from a tree in her garden. She mounted it on top of the table, and then she had all the products hanging up here. So as you walk by, all you could see are these feline creatures looking down at you. And then she'd take them down. She was all about showmanship, so she'd take them down and lay one on the arm as customers would come up. And the customers would smooth it down, and it would roll up, and Mimi's product came alive. The Roadkill Kitty came alive. Mimi's business came alive. And Mimi came alive. You see, Mimi wasn't strong. She wasn't a strong academic student, and yet had perhaps the most successful business in her class. And what was so exciting was that she was able to achieve that success by showcasing her entrepreneurial and her artistic flair. The product development stage is also very powerful because students come up with an idea, but then they have to use market research. They do prototyping, and then they get into production. So it's very rich with learning opportunities. What we've been looking at is the process of learning, and the idea of the process of learning is so important here. And when we think back to that original experiment that I had, what was the driving force there was truly the fact that the kids were in charge. They get to make their own decisions, and they're learning something that's real to them and meaningful. And that's really, in essence, the whole driving force with this project. But what's ultimately important is the fact that the kids are actively developing core competencies, these entrepreneurial skills that I mentioned up front. They're actively developing them in order to achieve success with their projects. And in order for all of this to work, there's two key features. And the first one is that the students have to have a freedom to make mistakes. And so when we think about entrepreneurship is actually messy. There's no one path or right answer. So it's really important that the students have the freedom to explore and experiment and treat mistakes simply as learning opportunities. The second is that students need to have the chance to really reflect on their experiences and be able to identify and internalize, what they're learning. So as an example, they start a business, they know they can say, I am a business owner, or I am an entrepreneur because I did it, or I am creative because I solved that problem. So that self-reflection stage is really key because it gets them a chance to really define who they are as individuals. So I want to give you a couple of examples of how they reflect on their experiences. So when asked, what did you discover about yourself? This young boy said, I learned that I'm far more creative than I thought I was. When asked, what did you learn? This young lady said, I learned that if you take risk, you will succeed. And taking risk means thinking outside the box. So words of wisdom from a 10-year-old. Now, the next one is purely for fun. And it's a question we always ask, and we get some serious answers. And in this case, what tip would you have for other young entrepreneurs that are just getting started? And this young boy said, wear deodorant. The actual statement was, wear deodorant the young entrepreneurs get nervous, the room gets warm, and you don't want to be stinky. So we've looked at really the value of the process of learning, and now I'd like to look into some broader benefits of this entrepreneurial experience. And the first is that it shifts culture. And this really became clear to me one year when I was working, one of the teachers reached the 10-year mark. And I asked her, I said, what's the difference between year one and now? And she said, in year one, I asked my kids, how many of you think you can start a business? And 1 or 2 hands went up. In year 10, she asked the same question, and every hand went up. Now, when she asked them why, they all agreed. But one of the students captured it best. And she said, I went to my first entrepreneur show in kindergarten, and I've been thinking about my products ever since. So the entrepreneurial experience, it not only helps them discover that entrepreneurship is a possible career option, it also helps them realize that there's more potential for them as young people. They can do things that maybe they didn't realize they could before. The second benefit is that it is really about unleashing potential. And one year, I was working with a student. In this particular case, this student, I walked in, it was about 2 years ago, and his name was Keegan. And Keegan had what we call him the soap guy, actually, because he had this really cool soap product. And he was standing with poise and confidence, interacting with customers and so on. And when I asked him why it was fun, he said, it's fun because I get to be me. And I looked over at his mom, and she was crying. And I realized, wow, there's more to this. So when a few months later, he was actually giving a presentation in front of a group of educators. And as he was standing there, he said, school isn't easy for everyone. And he went on to explain that he had learning disabilities and often struggled with school. So with this project, he said he could think outside the box, and he discovered that he was far more creative and he had more talent than he realized before. And he was able to discover things, and it gave him high hopes. High hopes. Think about how many kids out there feel anxiety about the future. This project really helps them, or this type of project really helps them discover new potential. The entrepreneurial mindset also helps kids spark leadership. An entrepreneurial mindset helps kids discover that they can make the world a better place. It really helps them discover that they can have careers that are fulfilling and meaningful and even be self-reliant. It helps them to discover their passions and their talents and their interests. And it helps them to discover that they can actually achieve success not only in the future, but in school today. One of our entrepreneurs, he had severe behavioral problems and would blow up every day in class. And he would scream and shout and leave the room and so on. And at the end of the program, he flourished. And a year later, he came back and he had a gift for me. And he said, what do you see? And I said, there's 3 stones, and they're smooth, they're colorful, and they're special. And he said, I'm special too, and that's how I want you to remember me. Let's get out there and help kids develop an entrepreneurial mindset, and let's help them use their special talents to put their mark on the world. Thank you very much.